This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Hustro.com, a leading construction management software tool.
Yes, some people will be very negative about that technology. Some people will say it's impossible, but I spent a lot of time when I was with BP and Ford in China, right? And the answer is there. When you go to China, you realize electrification cannot fail because it's already won.
Yeah.
Right? So, there are 49,000 40-plus ton trucks running today that are fully electric in China. 49,000. Just think about it. If you get on a bus in China, in any major city, it is completely electric, and they've been electric for 10 years. They've not been electric for 1 year, they've been electric for 10 years, right? More than 20% of all vehicle sales in China are fully electric, and 80+% are hybrid.
Hi everybody, Gavin Coyle, I'm the Gaffer, back again. Mike Nakrani is with us today, and this guy has got an amazing CV in background in terms of working in the corporate world, and he is now CEO of VEV, which is electrified, everything got to do with your electric vehicles, everything got to do with where that movement is going in terms of electrification of your vehicles and the management of your vehicles, the strategy of how to look after your vehicles in that area and in that zone. And I'm really excited to get to know how you can improve your business in terms of fleet management in this area. And I'm really excited to see, where is this industry that Mike is involved in terms of the current position and where it's going, and how his company are making pretty big inroads into, supporting companies like yourself. So I think you'll take a lot out of this podcast, not at least that this guy is a superstar in terms of his background, but what his company can do for you and for the industry in terms of construction, especially in terms of, if you've got a lot of vans or a lot of vehicles on the road, like cars and vans, and you're going into this electrified sector, this is the guy you need to speak to. Mike, welcome to I'm the Gaffer.
Oh, welcome, Gavin, and thank you for that lovely intro. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to the fireside chat that we're going to have.
Brilliant. Give us a background, I'm blown away, but without going into the whole history, because that's a podcast in itself, looking at your career. But
well, I guess a bit of background. So I guess I'm actually a first generation immigrant. Actually, I was born in India a long time ago. Won't tell you exactly when, Gavin, if that's okay.
Right.
To spare my blushes.
I thought you were Irish,
but a long time ago. And my parents moved to the UK in the late 70s, as such, right? So, and that's when I guess got introduced into the UK system and stuff. I spent most of my life living in North London, and then out of uni I joined Ford, worked for them for pretty much 20 years, all over the world. Got lucky, got to live in Germany, Russia, China, the US, and then moved over to BP to become their VP of Electrification, Hydrogen Mobility Services. Did that for a few years, setting up their strategy, deciding what to do for BP, the big oil and gas major, and then got a phone call from an investor called Vitol to come and do something about electrification. Vitol's a large energy trading company, and they're very unheard of, but they're very innovative, very entrepreneurial. And what they tend to do is find individuals like me and then say, we see this thing happening, go and figure something out. And that's I joined them in November of 21, so nearly 4 years ago. And then I put together a plan in 22, which I went to an investment committee with my investor and agreed a slug of cash to start a new business called VEV or VEV, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But essentially, it's a brand new business that helps large fleets essentially go from today's ICE fleet to a electric fleet. And we provide a turnkey solution to help them do it.
Wow. Looking at the Ford side of things, you were 17 years with Ford. That's, people would be happy just to sort of take the old pension and just go, thanks very much, all the best. You're looking for punishment?
Yes and no, a little bit. I mean, they're a brilliant employer. They're working for an automotive OEM. When I came out of uni in the 90s, was like for somebody who's a petrol head like I am, was like godsend. And so I got the chance to work for them. And I stayed with them for a long time because Yeah, when you move jobs within the company, Gavin, it's like moving companies anyway. In large companies, and got to live in different pieces of, different parts of the world. Spent actually quite a lot of time in Germany. Actually, I met my wife and my kids. Actually, we were born. Three of my kids were born in Germany, so I have a lot of kids, and I loved it. But what was exciting about moving when I left them to join BP was starting from scratch in the electrification space and the hydrogen and mobility space, and that for me was a big deal to get a chance to do something from the beginning. But it was hard leaving Gavin, got to say. It wasn't easy. It wasn't like, because your point's really valid, right? I had a great career. It was going very well. I have a lot of friends still at Ford, and I mean, they're going through some troubles right now, as are a lot of large corporates, to be fair. But it's a fantastic family, to be honest. And if you look at, there are many lifers in both BP and in Ford. So I'm a bit of an oddball there when I think I had a chance to stay, but I left both of them.
Yeah. I'm only just thinking that I ditched the Jeep about 2 years back and bought a transit van,
Yeah.
and I never looked back.
Oh, it's a
Actually,
great
I was
van,
like,
isn't it?
what was I doing? Yeah, what was I doing in the Jeep? It
It's a great van.
was just a big, oh man,
I gotta
just you
say,
could throw it anywhere.
but one of the things I loved about Ford is that people make sometimes have a lot of criticism with various OEM manufacturers, and I think where I'd be say it's fair to Ford is it had difficulties maybe in really knowing its customers as well it should in some of the segments it was going after. But if you look at the transit van, you know, Ford knows its customers. They are visceral in their understanding of customers. And there's like in the US, the Ford trucks, in the UK and Europe, the Ford transit van. I think you'd be hard pushed, and I would say this, I am biased. I don't think there's a better product out there in the van segment or in the truck segment. That's not to say some of the other competitors aren't good; they are very good. But my experience has been that um, that in my doubt, there's no mind that Ford is one of the best commercial vehicle operators out there in the world.
Yeah, like I love the way you said that actually, because they do profile the customer very well. Like when I went to look at that van, we do a lot of work in the industry as well on our recruitment business, and lo and behold, part of their media sort of marketing package was a van on a wind turbine project. It's like,
Brilliant,
there
isn't
you
it?
go.
It's brilliant. I mean, the business. I mean, I'm good friends with some of the guys who retired, like Barry Gale, one of my good friends. He was the chief engineer of Transit, right? There's a
Yeah,
number of people that were involved in it, and these are all people that I grew up with, who are brilliant leaders that I looked up to and followed. But
yeah,
they spent huge amounts of time with customers. They spent huge amount of times in the van while it's being used for what it needed, right? And it was very much
really, yeah,
about doing something that's needed for the end customer. So if you guys are in a
yeah,
transit van, somebody has spent a lot of time thinking about exactly all the pieces that are there. And if the bits don't
yeah,
work, you can ring them and they'll listen and they'll try and fix it next time round. And that's something amazing, right? That
yeah,
um,
yeah,
it's the fit for purpose piece is really, really important. And I take a lot of that in my business, to be honest, Gavin. I think about
right,
the customer. Quite often in large corporates you can be detached from the customer. There's essentially the product that you design and you build, and then you run focus groups and lots of wonderful things to try and understand, right? However, that's not the same as real direct contact with the customer. uh, we do that. So when we talk about what we do, one of the reasons I think we've been so successful, and we're still a very young company. We're only a couple of years old. We're doing really well. We're really proud of what we've done. There's still so much more to do, but essentially we're winning. And I'd love you to talk to some of my customers at some point. But winning because we actually are with them all the time, trying to figure out what it is they need to do, right? So when it comes to electrifying large van fleets, for example, we're understanding how those vehicles are used day in, day out. Not at a superficial level. We actually try and get hold of the last 12 months of data and information of how they traveled, when they've traveled, how much energy they've consumed, et cetera, et cetera. And then using that, we then start to build a plan. So it's real. You can get real confidence, because the switch to EV isn't easy. And if you're driving a transit van, you guys, especially the guys out there who are listening to this podcast, probably thinking, "How the hell am I going to drive an EV knowing what I do?" And there are definitely some cases where that is definitely the truth, but you'd be surprised when you look at the data, when you've got a mix of a large bunch of fleets, how many fleets actually could move towards electric and start saving money and having a better experience today. So it's not about the full, not about doing 100% of your vehicles, because that's probably impossible. There are always going to be edge cases. But can you do, if you have 100, can you do 20? And will those 20 save you money and therefore give you more cash in your pocket? Yeah, more euros in Ireland, more pounds in the UK, etc., in your pocket. And it can be done. And that's one of the reasons I think that closeness to the customer and understanding what they need to make sure the product works for them is something that's inbred in our company.
So give me a sense of like, I'm Mr. Roofing contractor, and I've got 25 vehicles on. I've 5 cars and 20 jeeps on the road. What is it that you guys do? You go in and do a strategic gap analysis on the company?
Yeah, so our view is you've got a tough enough job doing your construction and roofing company, right? It's not easy, right? Yeah, you work long hours. You have to deal with the weather elements, the cost elements, the cost of living, the inflation pieces. You have to deal with the health and safety regulation. You have to deal with all sorts of things, right? Various different pieces. The job is hard enough. What tends to happen is the owner of the business or the fleet manager of the business who's got a full-time job gets given the task to go think about how to move towards CO2 neutral, right? And you look at a lot of your customers, I'm sure, sorry, a lot of your listeners probably have contracts with large companies who are all asking them, what are you going to do to bring the CO2 that you produce from my scope 3 emissions down? And it's a difficult task. And the reality is, quite often, the person being asked, they've got a full time job doing this. Now you add this piece on, which is a completely new requirement, and it's very difficult to start. And so our business there, one of the first things we do is we do exactly what you talked about, which we stop and we listen and we say, what have you got? Tell me how your
Yeah,
vehicles run. Can you get me the telematics on your vehicle so I've got at least a year's worth of data? I then put that into our sort of algorithm system that we've developed, our modeling capability.
yeah,
When I started the business, Gavin, I didn't think I'd have this, but I've got 3 full-time data scientists that work for me that sit, and what they do is they analyze your information, and then they start to
yeah,
build you a plan, right? And the plan isn't here's your let's go do your 100 vans, right? Or let's go do your 25 vans. The plan is actually here's your 25 vans. Here's what could work today. Here's what needs some operational change. Here's what requires new technology, and here's what's impossible and you should do last, right? And it
okay,
gives you an answer, and it also helps you. And that answer is a complete answer, though, so you can actually do something. There's no point
yeah,
giving you a wishy-washy, something we can't stand behind, right? Gavin, we need to be able to
yeah,
stand behind it. And that answer should be good enough for you to say, okay, can I trust the data that's there? And am I ready to start spending some cash and changing the way I do things? And if you do that, then we can do the next phase. The next phase is we'll do it for you. So not only we will say we'll do it for this, we'll then go do it for you. And then as we do it for you, you'll start to see that it does work, right? And it's at that point you start to really trust us because
okay,
we're not a consultant. Yeah, we don't come and say, here's a piece of paper, here's your answer, and then walk away. And then if the costs on that number are wrong, we're saying
yeah,
the next phase we'll do as well, which is we'll actually physically do it. And if we do it wrong, that's on us. It's not on you. We said we'd do it for X. It ended up being Y. That's on us, right? And it's at that
yeah,
point, like I said, the light bulb kicks on is that you've got a partner. You haven't got somebody trying to sell you something because we don't want to be
yeah,
selling something. Yeah, what we're trying to do is help you deal with what you need to do, but in a way that allows you to go do it at the pace that you can do it at a cost that is affordable and ideally at a cost that is actually better than you have today.
brilliant. Yeah. So do you s- do you guys select the assets then that needs to be brought into the workplace for that?
Correct. So we do with the analysis, we understand how the vehicle will be used. We understand what grid power requirements are needed actually at the local site that you've got for your depots. We focus mainly on back to depot, Gavin. Right? We don't do back to home and opportunity charging outside. We focus on what's actually available in the local depot. And so the grid upgrade, and I'm sure the same problem exists as it does in most other European countries, in Ireland, in the UK, etc., etc. Grid support and grid upgrade requirements are pretty massive. So if you get them wrong, you end up paying a lot of money. So you need to right size the grid upgrade. You can't do it. You can't do it in a. It's not a basic calculator. There's lots of people with one crappy spreadsheet will say, "Oh, it's next time this." You need the visceral data because you will overspec it, and if you overspec it, it will be unaffordable. If it's unaffordable, you won't do it, right? The ones who spec it correctly, it becomes affordable. When it's affordable, you suddenly realize, actually, by affordable, I mean it must be as good as what I have today or better. If it's better, you're going to make more money, right? And the reality is that person who gets tasked with doing it does not have the time or the skill set or the capacity to do what it is we do. And we're winning because there's 80 of us who do it, right? And with the best will in the world, somebody's got to procure the vehicles, understand the grid upgrades, put the planning permission in, buy the charging equipment, install it, and then give you a digital platform to run it. Impossible. You can do bits of it, you can't do all of it. And that's really resonating with customers, to be honest.
Are you looking to spend less time on paperwork and more time making things happen on site? Hustro.com is the simplest construction management software out there. Streamline inspections, defect reporting, and all your project documentation all in one app. With Hustro.com, contractors are seeing 75% less time on inspections and reports, 47% faster corrective actions, and almost a third quicker decision making. Hustro.com is the simplest software to manage construction projects, period. Level up your site efficiency today with Hustro.com. So let me throw a curveball at you then, Mike, because we love doing that on the show.
Sure.
What happens if Mr. Data Center Amazon wants to build his big white building beside where my charging station is going to be? How does that?
Do you mean it? Well, if you've got there first, you've got the power anyway, Gavin. So
You have, but
right?
He's going to take a lot more power than me.
He is, but your power is secured. He can't take your grid connection, right? You have your grid connection, you have your capacity, and he will have to pay for the incremental power requirement for his need, right? So the issue quite often isn't people always worry about, can I get the power and what happens to power. The issue we've found when we've gone in is if you don't right size it, you buy too much, and therefore you spend too much money. That's the real issue, Gavin. Not that I can't get the power or someone's going to steal and take capacity away from me. The bigger issue is if you don't analyze your vehicles properly, if you don't know the journeys that you're going to do, and you live in a generic world, right?
Yeah,
you will come up with a generic answer, and that generic answer is not fit for purpose, right?
Yeah.
So what will happen is you will overspec, and you cannot
Yeah.
overspec. If you overspec, you will never make it pay. Yeah,
Brilliant.
and it's you were talking earlier when we chatted earlier in the intro about lean. This is exactly that. You have to be lean from the beginning, right? I'm not saying you got to lose your shirt, right, and do everything. I'm saying you start small, but you think about the total picture that you've got to do, and you spec up the right standard, and you only invest in the things that where you don't have to where it'll be more expensive to invest second time round, right? And it's like I said, we become specialists at this. We're still early in our journey, so I'm not saying that it's finished, but we're certainly further ahead than most who've started, right? Because we've just been doing it so many times, and that muscle, like everything in business, if you do it more than once, guess what? First time you do it, it's really hard. Second time, it's still hard. Third time, it's hard. Fourth, fifth time, it starts to get a bit easier. Fifth, sixth, seven, eight times, you buy the right tools, it gets even better. 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 times, you start to be able to teach other people how to do it, right? And I'm sort of thinking that's where we're at. We're in that phase right now.
Where did you get your entrepreneurial background, Mike? That's what's spinning in my head. Like, I know you had the corporate world.
I think it's not too different to the Irish background. Big in family, a lot of small businesses. Everybody's a shop owner or a builder or an optician or a lawyer or an accountant, right? But everyone's running small businesses. The bit I'm lucky at is having been a small business owner, coupled with the corporate world, because I think a lot of the time as a small business owner, the stuff that I've learned from the corporate world, I would not know, right? When we ran our first bike and scooter shop, my dad said, you keep your costs low, you look after your customers,
Yeah.
and you work really hard. You open 24 hours a day and you run really like crazy, right? What he
Yeah. Look
didn't
after the pennies.
Correct. What he didn't tell me was that it's okay to spend money on marketing. He didn't tell me that actually, even though it's okay to think about other incremental service lines that will generate more margin. In my
True.
bike shop, it took me
Yeah.
ages to learn that I'm selling a niche product. Yeah, I'm selling an Aprilia motorcycle. The helmet that the guy buys when he comes in for an Aprilia motorcycle, I'm thinking, well, the shoey's 250 quid. The Arai is like nearly 400 quid. I'm not going to push the
Yeah.
Arai on it because that's a lot of money. And the shoey is good
Yeah.
enough because I'm being taught actually the shoey is good enough. That's my upbringing from the small entrepreneurial
Yeah.
bit. But actually, the corporate thing would have said to me, of course he wants the bloody Arai helmet. Yeah, because fundamentally he's buying an £11,000 bike. Why the
Yeah.
hell would he not be able to afford the £400 helmet? And this is something that I didn't know it until I'd run the business for a few
Yeah.
years. But in the corporate
Behaviors.
world, they would say to you, actually, you've got a product mix. How many customers are going to buy the Shoei? How many customers are going to buy the Arrow? What is it you're going to do to make them buy the Arrow? Because you've got that
Yeah.
much more margin on it. And all of these things are things that I wish I'd learned. I mean, I did learn them many,
Ah,
many years ago, but I can now
yeah.
deploy them, right? So coming back
Yeah.
to the business here, what's clear for me is that the guys want somebody who is a trusted partner. Yeah. In the end,
Yeah.
the person who's going to choose you because you're 50p less or 50p more expensive in something that is such a challenge is probably not the right customer for you. You need to be thinking about the
Yeah.
person who says, I want to get this right. I'm going to go a bit slower actually to
Yeah.
get it right. I'm going to learn. I'm going to take a bit more experimentation and I'm willing to pay for that learning is probably a
Yeah.
better partner to work with than somebody who says, here's a commodity stack and I'm just going to do these two things and please price it. Yeah. What we're not
Well,
doing is the white good, right?
you said it earlier on, Mike, and we should have probably zoned into it a bit more, but trust. You used the word trust. And I think IT, I'm a firm believer. I don't know about you, but if you can get the trust side of things sorted, price, while it is important, is not the number one priority.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So on the trust bit, what I'd say is like clearly everybody wants a good price. Nobody wants to be ripped off, right? So if you're working in the ripped off space, then the honest answer is you'll never have a big business because customers will find out and you will lose your business longer term. My firm belief. It's been evidenced in decades of business management books, I'm sure, right? So the person, yeah, but actually, so a competitive price is a must, right? So it's not about fleecing someone. That's very, very important for us. However, um, the reality is when you're doing a business like ours, the customer, when they do not know how this is not something they've done before, they must learn to trust you. And the way they're going to trust you is you have to be open, you have to be transparent, you have to educate what it is you're doing, you have to take them on the journey with you. But once you do that, they're on your side, right? And what that means is you can then start having dialogue with them about what they can do to make it better for them and how it can be lower cost for them. Yeah. While
Yeah.
still retaining a decent margin to make sure you can still earn a living and do what you need to do. Uh,
Yeah.
and then it's your trust to lose, right? So, yeah, you've got to do your utmost. The other thing that's really important for me is how do you win that trust? Yeah, like for us, the way we do it, and it's pretty natural because inherently, I think that's from our upbringing, which is we say, "What's your problem?" Oh, it's X, and then we say, "Right, let's. I don't care what it costs. What are we going to do to fix it? Let's fix it."
Yeah.
And then you fix it,
Yeah.
and you say, "Well, that was pretty good, wasn't it? Not bad." And then let's do the next thing, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it,
Yeah.
and from that builds a relationship, and then that relationship, um, you know, uh, things are going to go wrong, Gavin, right? In everything, especially when you're building something, things always go wrong naturally. There's all sorts of.
Yeah.
I'm a builder's son by trade, right? So from many many years ago, right? So having been in that
Yeah.
transit van up and down doing a load of labouring for my dad, right? There's always a leak.
Yeah.
There's always a crack. There's always a short somewhere. What matters is when the phone rings, you pick it up and someone says, "This has gone wrong." You say, "Let me find out how quickly I can get there." Let me see what I can do to make sure that I can make sure that you're okay. And what you get is a sigh of relief on the phone that one, you've answered the phone. Number two, you're going to do something about it. And then you do something about it. And when you do that time and time again, you get known in the marketplace as that company, as that person. And suddenly your order book's too busy. And then actually people are ringing you for new work and you're going, look, I haven't got time yet. I haven't got enough people to do that. And that was the case for certainly some of the things I learned in the bike shop, my dad's business, but what we're definitely trying to do here. Yeah, we're saying we won't let you down. Yeah, it'll go wrong, but we won't let you down.
Like my father had a grocery business, for example, and like that's got decimated through the whole, Lidl, Aldi, Tesco sort of, and they couldn't have known at the time that that was going to happen down the line. But I do believe that, you have to innovate. As some people say, you'll evaporate if you don't innovate. And you do have to look at scale. I think you can either say my scale is here and I'm happy to stay here and I'm going to do a really good job as a boutique sort of business owner, or you say, do you know what, I have an opportunity here to scale this, and I have an operational team that I trust that can deliver on this scale. So I'm what's clogging in my head is the scale of your business. It can be off the charts in terms of where you could go with this. Like,
100%. I mean, we've gone from what's it? We did just a little bit like we've gone from our goal is a business that's going to be turning ideally in the region of $300 to $400 billion a year in the next 3 years or so, and that's our plan. So the scale we see the market is big enough. Coming back to your mum and dad's grocery business for a moment, Gavin, I think one of the things I learned in the corporate world was to look up a lot more. And what I mean by that is when you're running a small business, you're running it 7 days a week, you're doing a great job, and and you don't have enough capacity to stand back and look up, right? And if you did have capacity to stand, so somehow my big pitch to my friends who still run small businesses is when they ask me for some advice, right? And they do sometimes come to me. I say, "Have you done enough work to know who your competitors are?" And I don't mean the guy down the street, about what the world is doing. Have you taken a bit of time to go visit a few other places? Have you gone to see your wholesaler properly at their premises to see who actually is actually? Have you actually had a conversation with these other guys? And so some of the signs you can see them a little bit further ahead. To be the best business person in the world, you don't need to be always the perfect innovator, Gavin. In my mind, what you need to do is be the person that is always curious to know what is coming, what your competitor is doing, and what you'll find is your competitor will change, right? The reality is, if you think about 25 years ago, and I look at the high street that's been decimated near where I live, but you could see online was going to that macro trend from online was always going to work. So the question was, when the internet came out, a lot of people, what they did is they just put a magazine on the web. Right? Well, i.e., here's my shop. It's on the web. They didn't think through actually how is my business model going to change with this digital relationship the customer are going to have, because actually they're going to do all their research on the web first, right? Then they're going to want to try and buy something on the web, yeah, and then they're going to want to get it delivered. And by the way, the best thing about this is I actually don't need 50 stores. Yeah, I can have a warehouse.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I look back at that time and I say to myself, okay, you probably wouldn't see the explosion of Tesco's and Aldi and Lidl coming into the market, at that scale to decimate the high street, if you like. And they were in pretty much like a high street location. But you could do things like bringing in wholesale goods, for example, by the container. If you brought in one container, and then just started to see, could you niche a market for yourself where you brought in, could be flowers from Holland. No one else is doing flowers. I'm going to bring in a container once a month, and you can still hold your small business, but you have this, innovative, creative but consistent model of consistently providing the right products for the right markets within your own niche.
Totally agree. And I think one of the things that I would say, a big thing, especially if you're trying to grow or if you're trying to protect your business, right? There are large scale macro trends that you should be looking at. And you don't need to look at them too often, but once a year, you should think about what are the macro trends that are going to affect me and my business. I'll give you a couple that are running. People are getting older, Gavin. Fundamentally in the UK, I know the UK better than I do Ireland and the other places, but actually the aging population is a fact. Number two, there is going to be the great wealth transfer. If you look at the boomer age that who've ridden the wave of, let's call it, the increased house prices, real estate boom, they still have final salary pensions that are passing on. They've got their homes are all paid off. As those people pass away, there is a massive transfer of wealth that's going to change. It's going to, and what impact? I don't know the impact. I'm just saying I can see the trend. AI itself is coming in. How is AI going to shift? I can't tell you the answer, but that trend is clear. But you could suddenly say, and then you could say globalization and CO2 reduction. In theory, the need to decarbonize and take pollutants out of the air, is that going to lessen? It might slow down with some of the North American things that are going on, but those trends are clear in my mind. Maybe some, I mean, if you look at the trend line, you could see it's direct correlation. Now, the next part, which is hard. So first part is it's hard to go out there and look at those trends. Then it's to find them and know them, but you could do with the reading and stuff. But the second stage is how does that affect my business? What is it I've got to do? Which one of those are going to have an impact on my business? And then am I going to let them impact my business? Or am I going to try and find a way of getting ahead of the curve of that? And that's something about the corporate world that I would love small and medium businesses to be doing more, right? Because and I think it's there are things that people can look at that, and I'm sure there are opportunities and mentorships and other stuff that people can get to look at certain things. But electrification to me is what I'm doing, right? I see the macro trend. Yes, it may. Some people will be very negative about that technology. Some people say it's impossible. But I spent a lot of time when I was with BP and Ford in China, right? And the answer is there. When you go to China, you realize electrification cannot fail because it's already won. Right. So, there are 49,000 40+ ton trucks running today that are fully electric in China. 49,000. Just think about it. If you get on a bus in China, in any major city, it is completely electric, and they've been electric for 10 years. They've not been electric for 1 year, they've been electric for 10 years, right? More than 20% of all vehicle sales in China are fully electric, and 80+% are hybrid. Right? So the answer is somehow they've managed to make it work. Is that going to be deployed in the rest of the world? The answer, I believe, is yes. Now, someone might try and slow it down and stop it and do, and there may be some impacts and stuff because you want to think about the local economy and the local manufacturing capacity. However, that trend line is not going to stop. So the question we have then is how do you get ahead of it and how do you participate in it? If you're an OEM who builds vehicles, you've got to be thinking about how that's going to work, right? And you should have been
Yeah,
thinking about it 10 years ago, not now, really, because I think the race is lost, right? And if you're a
yeah,
small business, you're thinking, gosh, how many? I come across lots of logistic companies, Gavin, and a lot of our customer logistics companies, their customers are demanding a glide path from today's emissions level to tomorrow's emission level in their
yeah,
new tenders. Only one or
yeah.
two, not everybody, only one or two are asking that. But do you think seriously in 5 years, everybody is not going to be asking for that? And if you're a logistics company, you haven't thought this through, the one who has is going to get a lot more business than the one who hasn't.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And that thought process,
100%. Yeah.
but those trends are there today. So you have to ask yourself, if you're one of those business owners, what stops me thinking about that and creating a plan to protect myself versus that?
Yeah. It's definitely the Nokia versus the smartphone situation.
Yeah. I mean, that was it was growing massively and then it just dropped off a cliff, didn't it? right?
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
my Nokia. I had a 6210, right? Do you remember that 6210i?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the best phones
Yeah.
ever. Um, but
My wife still has the little brick one here somewhere.
I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's great, Gavin. I personally love those phones. They had a week's worth of battery life. The screen was strong. You'd have to drop it
Oh
in
yeah.
like
Indestructible.
indestructible, and the Bluetooth connection was pretty good too, right? So it actually worked
Yeah.
quite well in the car. So, but you sit there thinking that the trend, the digital platform, the app enabled environment. I mean, that was hard to predict, to be honest, right? Really difficult to predict. And so
Mm.
I think in that regard, you can give Nokia a little bit of a uh,
That pass.
yeah, pass, but because really, what
Mm.
Apple did was special. But actually, in our general small businesses and trends, be it the trend of AI, the trend of digital, the trend of digital currency, the fact that people use their phone for everything, they're kind of
Yeah.
given now. And then the fact that people are getting older in the European landscape, that's another pretty big given. Yeah. The fact that
Yeah.
there's more retirees in 20 years when there'll be people working, that's a big deal. What's going to
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that
People are.
experiences matter
People.
more than physical things sometimes, right? So the amount of money spent on experiences, all those things are business opportunities, which I think loads of people, if they start thinking about them, they will create ideas and build off them.
Wow. I can just imagine you at a management meeting and everybody going, "Oh Jesus Christ."
Yeah, but I mean, you
this
can speak to
this
some of the
guy
team.
is intense.
Yeah, Gavin, I am. And my team do give me that feedback a lot, Gavin. To be honest, they give me that a lot. But however, I
But
would
that's
say,
brilliant. I love it.
uh,
Don't stop.
no, well, I won't. I won't. I can't. It's in my character, it's in my blood. But great things get done by great people doing great effort,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And the people who win in business are usually the people that are just one or two steps ahead of everybody else, aren't they?
100%.
Right?
And you missed the one piece off that 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 greatness is that greatness has no finish line.
No, it carries on. Better never stops, right? Isn't that the case, right? I
Yeah.
think I've seen that
Yeah.
logo
Yeah.
loads, right? Better never stops. It's completely true. There's always some bugger trying to outcompete you, Gavin.
So talking about people trying to outcompete you, where do you sit with the whole hydrogen side of things in terms of where you're at?
Um, so it's a little bit difficult without getting a bit emotional, I guess, here on hydrogen, to be honest, Gavin. So hydrogen, when I took it on, I worked on it when I was at Ford, and I worked on it when I was at BP, and I worked on it when I joined the current organization. And when we first started off with electric cars, when I first started way back when at Ford, we thought it was just for the city runabouts, two-seater cars maybe. And then if you look at the technology today and you say two-seater cars, oh gosh, it ended up being in a Focus and a Fiesta. Oh gosh, it ended up being in a full-size, like vehicle, like an SUV. I've currently got a Kia EV9, one of the best cars in the world, right? It's a seven-seat SUV to carry me and all the kids and the paraphernalia. And then it's gone into vans and the new transit van. The first generation vans weren't awesome. The second generation are pretty good. The ranges is pretty good. So it's starting to work for the 3.5 and the 4.5 ton van. And now I'm working with a lot of large fleets who have got 40-ton trucks, and it's starting to come into 40-ton truck. I'm working with a lot of the large bus companies, right? So the bus companies are one of my bigger customers, and they're all going electric. So suddenly the range has moved up. And the original thought was actually electric would be for small cars, and then anything large would be hydrogen. Now, Toyota must have put in, I don't know the exact number, but what, $20 billion into the hydrogen journey? Probably more than that, realistically. So it's not that they haven't given it a good go. They've given it a really good go, and they haven't made it work. I, together with BP, and also when in this current job, we looked at hydrogen fueling stations. We own some, and in the end, this is going to sound awful, but the laws of physics apply. Yeah, hydrogen is really difficult. It's currently in the marketplace because governments are subsidizing it, but making it is difficult at the right cost structure. Storing it is incredibly difficult. Transporting it is even harder. And then dispensing it is also difficult. So all of those things are incredibly difficult. If you think about one diesel fuel truck, the big oil tankers that drive, right? If you have, you need 10 of those for the same equivalent energy, right? And you'd have to either compress it to 250 bar to be able to get it into that container size, or you'd actually need to virtually cool it to minus X hundred degrees, right? And even then, so all of the expense, the transport, the ecosystem, It's just incredibly difficult. So therefore, I always stick with hydrogen. I think hydrogen will have a place to play, but it's going to be very niche. And really, what we should see first is hydrogen for fixed locations. If you can put some electrolyzers adjacent to a renewable factory, which makes cement or steel, all right, I can see the value there, but that's where it should start. Let it get good there, and then maybe, just maybe, it had a chance to move into mobile. But by then, battery technology will have moved on so far that actually, and I think the race has been won on vehicles by electric, to be honest, right? And hydrogen should focus, in my mind, the players who are pushing it. I would say it's much, much better suited to fixed than it is to mobile. Get it right on fixed. There's enough opportunity there on fixed to really work it. And if you can, then you may find actually some of the technology changes. Maybe something gets invented that allows you to store it better, that allows you to transport it better, allows you to dispense it better. And then maybe it can make a comeback. But I'd say outside of, let's say, grant based, government opportunity based, the oil and gas industry would love it because it will force you to charge always at one of their stations, right? It keeps them relevant. And I can understand that. The industry would love it. But the reality is, I think last year, um, don't quote these exact numbers, but I think it was 17,866 hydrogen vehicles were sold, whereas 17 million electric vehicles were sold. So just think of.
Hello, Gaffers. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We love every one of the guests that we have, but in order to bring on more great guests, we'd love to build the channel with you. So hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's create a really great community where we bring in better and better guests for you to deliver great content and great pieces of information that you can take back into your business. Now, back to the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I watched the documentary on Nikolai, the guy that tried to do I think it was Nikolai.
Yeah, it was
Tried to
Nikolai
do the hydrogen
on
truck.
the truck down the hill kind of stuff. Those are
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Fake it till you make it. But if you look back, like obviously he was the wrong guy, and he went to jail for. I think he's actually going to be released as a pardon by Trump.
Trevor Milton, wasn't it? Trevor Milton, I think his name was.
Trevor Milton, yeah. I think Trump is going to pardon him actually, if he hasn't done it already. But yeah, we could talk about the ethics of what he was doing, but on the other side, when I've seen the complexity of what he had to deal with, you kind of say to yourself, oh, now I understand. Like, as you say, storage, logistics of it, the chemical,
Really,
sort of
really hard.
science of the whole thing.
And I really tried. So don't get me wrong, I was an advocate, right? So this is not and actually one of my good friends is actually bought the rest of the Nikolai production stuff recently, actually, and he's trying to make it work, right? But he and I have some heated discussions about whether it will or won't, right? And I wish him the best. I really want it to work, but the reality is, I would say the laws of physics have won, and the race has been won by electric for pretty much 95% of all vehicles that exist on the planet, I reckon.
Yeah, you get a feeling that the ship has left the port at this stage.
Yeah, maybe boats. You never know. Maybe boats. Yeah, but even then, they're adding batteries now to boats. There are ferries now across the channel. There are ferries across Ireland, whatever, that are now running that are fully electric.
Really?
Shore power is
Wow.
coming, and it's at scale. I mean, you're talking massive batteries, like 2.5 to 5 megawatt hour batteries, right? But they are, because there's a huge amount of diesel that gets emitted. You wouldn't want to be in a port when these diesel engines are running, to be honest. It's not a great environment. I mean, people can argue about climate change or not, but the pollution aspect in my mind is clear, right? At the end, the tailpipe emission is significantly better for me sitting in a traffic jam when there's a bunch of EVs, regardless of whether people believe in climate change or not. And I sort of think anybody who takes pollutants out of the system should be really commended.
In terms of back to your own business, where do you see yourself maybe in 10 years' time? Where do you see this business? Are you gonna, is it a big exit plan or
Yes, I think in the end, how does success get derived? I'd like to take the company and float it at some point, Gavin, or find a strategic partner to take it on. I'm in no rush. That's not I think, my wife hates me when I say this, but I think I'll work forever. I don't think I'll stop working ever. Because the reality is, I like making things. I like meeting great people. I like challenging the system. I like challenging myself. So I think that I don't think that I'll ever be sat at home a bit like uh, I'm lucky not to work in the same industry as my father, where his body was destroyed, right, by the physical hard work that he had to do, that lots of other people have to do. So in that regards, very lucky. So if my health permits, I'd like to continue. But no, we absolutely would like. We think the market's huge, Gavin, and we're thinking big, and we are going to create something that's particularly big. Provided we can carry on satisfying our customers the way that we have been. I don't doubt it for a moment we can do it if we carry on, right? Because they're the key. Yeah, listen to them. What doesn't work for them, fix it, and just keep doing that, and keep adapting your processes and your product to that. Um, but we've got ambitions to take the business. We think it's going to be one of the first true e-mobility businesses that are seriously profitable and worth, we hope, well in excess of $1 billion at some point.
Wow, I love it. I love that. I'm going to throw a few curveballs at you if you don't mind, Mike, just to lighten things up. Knowing what you know now, what would you do different?
In this business, Gavin, do you mean like
in general, in life, in your life?
I think I would have.
Now, we don't want you to get divorced or anything else.
No, no. No, I think things I would do differently. I think I would have. So I loved my entrepreneurial experience when I was younger. I would have found more mentors and coaches. I would have, I recognize that had I had more input from people who were more visionary and who had done this before, who were outside of my sort of very limited sphere of entrepreneurs, which were essentially my Indian background, providing me with, and they're brilliant entrepreneurs, by the way, who have had really successful careers and run great businesses, but they weren't ever going to be, they weren't ever able to teach me how to think about things in the way that the corporate world has done. I would have wanted to do that. I would have sought more advice. I would have been a lot less arrogant. In my 20-something-year-old me, I would have been a little bit, and actually been a bit more humble about finding that out. But I didn't know. That was one thing. I would have probably have actually had a shorter corporate career, Gavin, if I'm really honest. I loved it. It gave me opportunities that were fantastic, to live in different countries, to meet different people, to learn different cultures, all sorts of things I got to do. So this is not a negative or a regret, but actually, I love the entrepreneurial vibe. And could I have done it 10 years ago instead of starting it 2, 3 years ago again? Maybe that would have been something I would have done differently. And then technology. To be honest, Gavin, like the one thing that everything is digital, everything is connected, and now I'm thinking about everything is digital, everything is connected, and most things are being powered by lithium ion. So the intersection of those three things and the business ideas that could come about, and then chuck data into it, which is the next thing, and then you mix in the AI engine algorithm kind of stuff. There's going to be stuff that we haven't even thought of that's going to exist in 10 years, right? And if I was a younger man, it'd be quite cool. I would probably be thinking about how can I participate in the smorgasbord of all of that stuff. I'm trying to do it in this business, but actually, would it be a completely different business? I don't know, right? But maybe the kids beneath it. We're building a really good, capable team of young entrepreneurs, right? So my hope is that the team that currently work in the business, as we are successful in this business, will spurn a ton of them that will go out there and build loads of other businesses outside, and hopefully they'll invite me to come and see and maybe sit on the occasional in an occasional meeting on how they're performing at some point.
The grandmaster.
Yeah, maybe,
Brilliant.
maybe a bit like maybe the grandfather. I don't know about
that. A favorite book or movie?
Shawshank Redemption. Always, I've always loved it. That one and Leon, but Shawshank Redemption is probably, it stayed with me. I watch it every year a few times. I love all the science fiction stuff, but to be honest, I'm a big fan of Slow Horses as well. Right, I've just I don't know if you've watched it, but it's actually fantastic on Apple. That's amazing. Book wise, to be honest, I used to read enormous amounts, but I've now started picking up podcasts, and so I'm into a bit of football. So I do listen to Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer and Mick Richard on the rest is football. But I've also got into learning about investments and stuff. So I listen to the Motley Fool podcast, which again, people won't know these, but these are like investing forecasts, very American. I really enjoy them. And then if you think the last book, I'm in the middle of a book called Outlive, actually, written by a doctor. and it's talking about longevity, and it's trying to talk about what there's a lot of fads about longevity and stuff, but how to keep yourself healthy, because I want to be running a business in my 90s. And if I want to be running a business in
Yeah.
my 90s, I've got to be able to be healthy. And so
Yeah.
but it's slow going because I just haven't had the time. So if you ask me, the last book I read, was yesterday. I read to my 5-year-old, and I read a book that was called Max the Cat and something Chases Birds. I can't remember the exact name of the title for my 5-year-old,
Yeah.
actually, right? So
Haha.
that's the last book I read
Okay.
yesterday.
Well, give me a favorite holiday destination, a go-to destination for you then, Mike.
Go-to destination for me. Where do I love going? So I really like one of my family members lived in Switzerland a long time, and I used to love going to the lakes in summer and to the snow, I don't ski, but I was trying to learn how to ski, but to the Alps in winter, and I say that's a close destination. But I also love going to Nice. My technology team are located in Nice in France, so I go there quite a lot. But the other bit is also, I'm lucky, I live in London, one of the best cities in the world. It's
Yeah.
noisy, it's smelly, it's full, it's
It's intense.
angry, it's intense, but bloody
Yeah.
hell, it's fun, dude, right? There's loads
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah.
and I would say that, anybody who hasn't been here or anybody who doesn't spend a lot of time here, um,
Yeah.
there is, for me, I'm lucky. I kind of feel like I live in a place where there's always a holiday destination, because you're always doing
Yeah.
something sorry, I don't do a lot anymore, because what I do is I work and look after my children. That's what my wife says. But in reality, we do stuff in London quite a lot. So
Oh, we love it. Yeah, we love it. Like, I remember we went to Legoland, and then we went into for the young kids, brilliant. And then went to Madame Tussauds and talked to the two kids. The two kids don't want to talk about Legoland. It's all about Madame Tussauds. Like
yeah, it's amazing. I think again, it's the ability to have a picture taken adjacent to whichever star. My kids are into this K-pop demon thing right now. I don't know, like, it's been a big deal. Anything there, and the songs and stuff, right? So that's the other thing. I think music. If you ask about love, I think one of the things that I think everybody should do is have a breadth of stuff. And I can't play any instrument, but I do like listening to various different pop music, I guess.
Mike, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do it? What's the best way to do it? You obviously are open to talking about how to improve your efficiency within your fleet, etc.
Easy.
Talk to me.
Mike@vev.com. Really easy.
Mike@vev.com.
Call me, text me,
And
email me, click on that. Ask. I try my best to answer everything I get.
you're also on LinkedIn. Mike Nakrani.
Yeah, follow us. Please follow us on LinkedIn. Right, we need to get the word out. Right, so and part of the help, Gavin, if you could, really would appreciate that to the team. I put a lot of the team puts a lot of effort in trying to build some educational material online about this sort of stuff. It's not specific about business necessarily, Gavin. It's more about our business and how we can help businesses electrify. But yes, please reach out to us on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way, to be honest. And read some of the articles, comment, give me some ideas and thoughts. We're not close to anything.
And the website is vev.com, and it's a very impressive website, by the way, vev.com. Mike, you're an inspiration. I'm totally blown away by you as a person and also as a business person, and I wish you every success.
Well, Gavin,
with
thank
VEV.
you.
I'm sure it'll be very successful.
Real pleasure to be on the podcast, and I hope your listeners enjoy it. And well done for doing it. Right, it's great that you make your time and effort to go do it. It's been really fun chatting to you.
Yeah, no, it makes my life easy when I meet people like yourself. So come back to us when you hit the 1B.
maybe a checkpoint in between, because it could be some time, Gavin.
Not at all. Thanks very much, Mike.
All right, take care.
Have a great day.
And you stay well.
Take care.
Astro is the simplest construction management software. Track progress, control works, access docs, and analyze performance, all in one platform.
First, eliminate planning and tracking headaches. Set up work areas, schedule and assign tasks quickly with our intuitive interface. Track progress in under 15 seconds. Attach documentation, photos, and videos to keep crews aligned. The whole team can communicate with each other through Astro or email. whichever feels more natural. But tracking is just the beginning. Next, standardize and simplify control and assurance. Automatically align inspections with ISO standards and internal procedures to ensure compliance. Connect inspections with issue tracking to identify and address problems quickly. Control quality, safety, and environmental compliance with observation and corrective action tracking. Activate your subcontractors through QR code submission forms and react faster than ever. And when you need information, access project data anytime, anywhere. 1 second drawing load to instantly open any blueprint. Smart file organization to help you find the correct document quickly and easily. Even without an internet signal, you can still access schematics, plans, and specifications. This multi-device power and our Hastro Cloud Drive keep you coordinated everywhere. Now, here's where it gets powerful. You can transform your project's data into results. Turn issues into actions with instant insights that spot critical problems before they escalate. Create custom reports in PDF, Excel, or CSV format. Start testing Hastro for free today